Every summer, folks plant watermelon seeds with big hopes. And come harvest, they cut into something pale, watery, and about as sweet as a garden hose. Most people blame the seeds, or a bad summer, or plain bad luck. But after years of growing watermelons in my own backyard, I can tell you the truth. A big, sweet watermelon isn't luck. It's a handful of simple things done in the right order. Once you know them, you can grow melons in a raised bed or a small backyard patch that beat anything at the store. Let me show you how. Now, I'm not a professor and I've never worked at a university. I'm a backyard grower, same as you. Everything I'm about to show you, I learned the hard way by planting, failing, changing one thing, and planting again. I've grown mushy melons and I've grown rock hard green ones. I've had vines take over the whole yard and hand me nothing. But over the years, watching what actually moved the needle, I ended up with a simple method that gives me sweet, heavy melons just about every season. No fancy gear, no greenhouse, just a raised bed, some compost, and the right steps in the right order. So let's get into it. There are about a dozen things in this method, and they run from the seed you pick all the way to the day you slice it open. Miss one, and you'll taste it. Get them all right, and it's downright hard to grow a bad melon. Two of these steps are the real sweetness secrets, and almost nobody talks about them. We'll get to those. But it all starts with a choice you make before you plant a single seed. First step, pick the right variety for where you live. This is where a lot of people go wrong before they even start. They grab whatever watermelon seed packet is sitting on the rack, plant it, and hope for the best. But watermelon varieties are not all the same, and the wrong one for your climate will never sweeten up no matter what you do to it. Here's the simple rule. If you have short summers or cool nights, you want a fast, cold-tolerant variety like Blacktail Mountain, or a small icebox type like Sugar Baby. These ripen quick and stay sweet even when the weather isn't perfect. If you've got long, hot summers, you can go for the big classic melons like Crimson Sweet, but understand they need a lot more time on the vine. The number to look for on the seed packet is days to maturity. Count the frost-free days you actually get in your area and pick a variety that finishes comfortably inside that window. A melon that runs out of warm season is a melon that never gets sweet. Get this one choice right and you've already done half the work before you've even touched the soil. Second step, and this is the foundation of everything. Build the soil before you build the plant. A watermelon is basically a big bag of sugar and water hanging on a vine, and the plant builds that sugar out of what it pulls from the ground and the sun. Thin, tired soil gives you thin, tired flavor. What watermelons want is loose, well-draining soil that's rich in organic matter. I work 2 or 3 inches of finished compost into the bed before planting, and if my soil is heavy clay, I mix in some coarse sand or build the whole thing up into a raised mound so water drains away instead of sitting around the roots. Watermelons hate wet feet. They also like the ground a little on the acidic side, somewhere around 6.5 on the pH scale, which is right about where good garden compost naturally lands. These plants are heavy feeders. They'll pull a lot out of the ground over a long season, so the richer and more alive your soil is at the start, the bigger and sweeter your melons finish. Get the soil right. And honestly, the plant almost grows itself, and the soil's exactly where I want to pause for a second. Because everything I've learned about building ground that grows bigger, sweeter fruit, the biology down in the dirt, the feeding, the little tricks that make a plant produce more, I put all of it into a book called the 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol. It's 115 pages, written for home gardeners like you, folks who don't have extra space or expensive equipment, but who want a lot more food out of every single plant they've already got. It covers how to prep and feed your soil, how to prune for higher yields, companion planting, and the timing that ties the whole thing together. This is the same system that turned my own garden around, and I put it out there for just $17. If you want it, scan the QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the description below. Take a second, grab it, and then let's get right back out to the melon patch. Third step, don't rush your planting. This one hurts a lot of gardeners every year. They get excited on the first warm day of spring, stick their seeds in the ground, and then wonder why nothing comes up or why the little seedlings just sit there and sulk. Watermelons are tropical at heart. They will not sprout in cold soil, and cold, wet ground will rot the seed before it ever gets going. the soil needs to be warm, around 70 degrees at the very minimum, and they really start moving when it's up near 80. If your season is short, start your seeds indoors in pots about 3 or 4 weeks before your last frost, then move the young plants outside once the ground has truly warmed up. One tip there. Watermelons don't like their roots disturbed, so use peat or paper pots. You can plant straight into the bed and be gentle. If you've got a long summer, you can just direct sow right into a warm bed and skip the transplant altogether. Either way, patience beats a head start. A seed planted into warm soil in late spring will outgrow one you rushed into cold ground weeks earlier. Let the ground warm up first, and the plant pays you back. Fourth step. Give them all the sun you've got. This one is not optional, and it's a big reason store melons often beat homegrown ones. That sweetness in a watermelon is sugar, and the plant makes sugar out of sunlight through its leaves. More sun means more sugar, plain and simple. A watermelon vine wants a full 8 hours of direct sun a day, and more than that is even better. If you're growing in a backyard with shade from trees or a fence, put your melons in the sunniest, most open spot you have, even if that means a big container out on a bright patio. Melons grown in part shade will put out plenty of green leaves and long vines, but the fruit comes out pale and bland just about every time. So before you plant anything, watch your yard across a full day and find where the sun sits the longest. That one sunny corner is worth more to your watermelon than any bottle of fertilizer you can buy. Fifth step. Give each plant room to run. Watermelon vines are hungry for space. One healthy plant can throw vines out 6, 8, even 10 feet in every direction. Crowd them together and they'll fight each other for light and food, and you end up with a tangle of leaves and hardly any fruit. So space your plants around 3 to 4 feet apart, with plenty of open ground for those vines to spread out. Now, if you're short on space, and a lot of backyard growers are, you've got a great option. Grow them straight up. Train the vines up a sturdy trellis or a section of cattle panel, and once the melons start forming, cradle each one in a little sling made from an old t-shirt or a mesh produce bag. A vertical setup lets you grow a real full-size watermelon in a tiny raised bed or even a large pot on a balcony. It also keeps the fruit up off the damp ground, which we'll come back to in a minute. Either way, the rule is the same. Room to breathe up top means fruit to eat down the line. Sixth step, and this is the first of my 2 sweetness secrets. Change what you feed the plant as it grows. Most people feed a watermelon the exact same thing all season long, and that's a mistake. Early on, when the plant is young and pushing out vines and leaves, it wants nitrogen. That's the nutrient that drives all that fast green growth. But once the plant starts flowering and setting little fruits, you need to back way off the nitrogen and switch over to feeding phosphorus and potassium instead. Here's why it matters so much. If you keep pouring nitrogen on a fruiting watermelon, you'll grow a monster of a vine with huge leaves and small, watery, tasteless melons. The plant spends all its energy on foliage instead of fruit. Potassium is the opposite. It's the nutrient that drives sugar and fruit development. So the moment you see those first little melons forming, switch to a low nitrogen feed that's higher in potassium, something like a tomato fertilizer or a mix of kelp and a little wood ash. That one change, cutting the nitrogen and feeding potassium right at fruiting time, is one of the biggest reasons my melons come out sweet and heavy instead of bland. Most home growers never make the switch, and it quietly costs them every harvest. Seventh step. Make sure your flowers actually get pollinated. Here's something a lot of new growers just don't realize. A watermelon plant makes 2 kinds of flowers, male and female, and only the female ones ever turn into fruit. You can tell them apart pretty easily. The female flower has a tiny, swollen bump right behind the bloom that looks like a miniature watermelon. That little bump only grows into a real melon if pollen gets carried from a male flower over to that female flower. And normally the bees handle that job for you. But if you're not seeing any fruit set, or you're growing on a balcony or somewhere bees are scarce, you can step in and do it yourself. In the morning, when the flowers are freshly open, pick a male flower, peel its petals back, and gently brush its center against the center of a few female flowers. That's it. You just did the bees' work. Hand pollinating takes about a minute, and it's the difference between a vine full of empty flowers and a vine full of melons. If your plant looks healthy but stubbornly won't set fruit, this is almost always the fix. Eighth step. mulch the bed, and get the fruit up off the dirt. Two small moves here, and both of them are worth it. First, lay down a mulch around your plants. Straw or shredded leaves works great. Mulch keeps the soil moisture steady, it blocks weeds that would otherwise steal food and water from your melon, and it keeps the ground warm, which watermelons love. Some growers in cooler climates even use black plastic mulch to soak up extra heat. Second, once your melons get to about the size of a softball, slide something underneath each one to lift it off the wet ground. A piece of scrap wood, an old shingle, a flat rock, even a folded piece of cardboard. This does two jobs at once. It stops the bottom of the melon from rotting or getting chewed on by the slugs and bugs living in the damp soil, and a board or a tile actually soaks up the sun and radiates a little extra warmth back into the fruit, which helps it ripen and sweeten. It's a tiny bit of effort that saves you from losing a good melon to rot right at the finish line. Ninth step, and this is a hard one for people to do, but it might be the most powerful move of all. Prune your fruit. Thin the melons out on purpose. When a watermelon vine is loaded up with flowers and little melons, our natural instinct is to let every single one of them grow. More melons, better, right? Wrong. A plant only has so much energy to give, and if it's splitting that energy between 8 or 10 fruits, you get 8 or 10 small, weak, so-so melons. But if you pick the 2 or 3 strongest young melons on each vine and pinch off all the rest, every bit of that energy pours into just those few, and they get big, they get sweet, they get everything the plant has to give. So once your melons are golf ball to tennis ball size, choose the best 2 or 3 on each healthy vine and remove the others while they're still small. I know it feels like waste. It isn't. You're trading a pile of disappointing melons for a few really good ones. Fewer fruit, bigger and sweeter every time. This is the trade almost no home grower is willing to make, and it's exactly why so many backyard melons stay small. 10th step, and this is my second sweetness secret, the one that separates a good melon from a great one. Control the water, especially at the very end. All season long, while the vines are growing and the fruit is sizing up, watermelons want deep, steady water. A good soak once or twice a week, down at the roots, not a light sprinkle over the leaves. That's what builds a big, healthy melon. But here's the secret hardly anybody knows. In the last week or two before harvest, when the melon has reached full size and is just about to ripen, you cut way back on the watering. Ease off almost completely. When you flood a ripening melon with water, all that water dilutes the sugars inside, and you end up with a big, bland, watery melon. But when you let it run a little dry, right at the end, the plant concentrates its sugars down, and the flavor gets rich and sweet and intense. So water deep and steady while it grows, then pull the water back hard in that final stretch. A melon that's a touch thirsty at the finish is a melon that tastes like candy. That single move has turned more of my melons sweet than anything else I do. 11th step, and it's the one that ruins more homegrown watermelons than any other. Pick it at exactly the right time. Here's the thing, you have to burn into your memory. A watermelon does not ripen after you pick it. Whatever sweetness it has the moment you cut it off the vine is all it is ever going to have. Pick too early and it never gets sweet, no matter how long it sits on your counter. So you have to learn to read the plant, and there are 4 signs. You want to see them together. First, look at the curly tendril, that little pigtail on the vine right where the melon attaches. When that tendril turns brown and dries up completely, the melon is telling you it's ready. Second, check the ground spot, the patch where the melon has been resting on the soil. On a ripe melon, that spot turns from white or pale green over to a rich, creamy yellow. Third, look at the skin. A ripe watermelon loses its shine and goes dull and matte, and the rind gets tough enough that your fingernail won't easily scratch it. And fourth, give it a good knock. A ripe melon sounds deep and hollow, like a low drum, while an unripe one sounds tight and high and dead. Brown tendril, creamy yellow ground spot, dull skin, deep, hollow thump. When you've got all 4 together, that is the day. Cut it, chill it down, and taste what a real homegrown watermelon is actually supposed to taste like. Now let's put the whole method together, because the real magic isn't in any one step. It's in the order you do them. You start by picking a variety that fits your season. You build rich, well-draining soil and you wait for it to warm up before you plant. You put that plant in full sun with room to spread. You feed nitrogen early, then switch to potassium once the fruit sets. You make sure the flowers get pollinated, you mulch the bed, and you lift the fruit up off the dirt. Then comes the part most people skip entirely. You thin down to 2 or 3 melons per vine, you pull back the water in that final stretch, and you wait for all 4 ripeness signs before you cut. If I had to point to the 2 mistakes I see over and over, they're simple ones. People plant too early into cold soil, and people water heavy right up to the day they pick. Fix just those 2, add the fruit thinning, and even a first-year gardener can grow a melon that beats the store. None of this takes a bigger yard or expensive gear. It just takes doing the right things in the right order. So there it is. That's the whole method I use to grow big, sweet watermelons in my own backyard. And now it's yours. Go pick your variety, get that soil ready, and give it a real shot this season. I promise you, once you taste a melon you grew and ripened right, the flat ones from the store are ruined for you forever. And if you want to take everything that worked on your watermelons and use it on the rest of your garden, your tomatoes, your peppers, your squash, that's exactly what the 30-day maximum yield protocol is built for. It's the full system for pulling a lot more food out of the space you already have, and it's just $17. Scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description below and start growing more from every single plant you put in the ground. Now get out there and grow something great. I'll see you in the next one.